Hello and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It's Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. Today, we are talking autos and auto-related news because there are some stories we want to get through. One about vehicles that won some awards, some local brands that did well. And then two, we've got news about the North American International Auto Show that has huge impacts on Detroit. Eric Trytko, good to see you.
Jer, great to be back here once again.
Let's start with what's called NACTOY, the North American Car, Truck, and Utility Vehicle of the Year Award. This is normally awarded during NAIAS. I have actually been to this ceremony a couple times, but no auto show in January, and really no auto show in January. So let's talk about the winners on this one first. North American Car of the Year was the Honda Civic. These have a great reputation, so this doesn't really surprise me.
No, and it's funny. There was no auto show to award it this year, but they still held it at the Huntington Center, the awards this morning or yesterday morning. So, so they still were there in spirit, right? But yes, the new Honda Civic is a truly amazing car. The level of quality you get for the price is absolutely amazing. It's a big car, actually. Even though everyone thinks Civic's a small car, it's really the same size as, say, an early 2000s Accord, which most people would consider like a mid-size sedan. But for $25,000 to $30,000, and even a little less than, for a base model, you get a lot of technology, well built, and I mean, it's a vehicle you can buy and own for 10 years and not even think about it.
I think people really love value for money, and they really care about it when it comes to automobiles, unless they're in the luxury segment.
Yeah, exactly. I really want to give kudos to the jurors, because whether they did it or not only the Civic, but we'll talk about the one of the other vehicles that won here. Both of those vehicles, their MSRPs are about 10 grand under what the average transaction selling, average price for a new car is today. So I really want to give them kudos for giving awards to vehicles that an average person can buy, Civic being one of them. Now, there was really contrasted on the other end by one other vehicle in that category, which was the Lucid Air, which by all accounts of everyone who's driven it is an absolutely amazing electric vehicle, but that starts at almost $100,000. So, and it literally just made the cut because it just started going on sale about, 3 weeks ago. It's everything Tesla is and more, meaning that it actually has build quality and a nice interior. And then the third vehicle in that category was the latest generation, the Mark 8 Golf GTI and Golf R, which those have gotten very expensive for what they are in this latest generation. And by all accounts, not as good as the last generation. So, Honda Civic, I think, really deserved of the three finalists. That really was a great choice for North American Car of the Year.
Real quick for listeners, and frankly, I'm a little bit unclear on it. Lucid's kind of a new name. Can you spend just a minute and tell us about them?
Sure. So they are a startup EV company based out of California, shocking. And the founder of Lucid was I want to say he was one of the head designers at Tesla. He was well up in the Tesla management structure early on, broke off about 5 or 6 years ago to start his own company. And Lucid has been built off that. One of the big things that Lucid is talking about with their vehicle is in this specific model of theirs, they have a 520-mile range for their battery, and the fact that it's as luxurious or even more so than, say, like an S-Class Mercedes. If you want to think about ultra luxury and ultra quiet of an EV, if you've got the money, if you are one of those Daily Detroit listeners who are in the C-suite, this is certainly something you should be looking at. And I mean that honestly and seriously.
Let's get to the North American Truck of the Year. Ford showed, but it was for their Ford Maverick. The F-150 gets all the attention, but the Maverick won. I'm kind of impressed and kind of happy because, we talk about larger vehicles. There's all this trend towards larger vehicles. I love me a good, small, practical pickup truck.
Yep. As a former owner of a early 90s Ranger pickup truck and having owned a early 90s GMC S15, yes, I like that size vehicle, and that's exactly where the Maverick falls in. Also up for the award was the Hyundai Santa Cruz and the Rivian R1T. And this is the second vehicle we're talking about where the MSRP is well below the average selling price. So this is a vehicle normal people can have. And if you get let's say the front wheel drive hybrid model, theoretically you can get high 30s, low 40s for fuel economy. So not only is it cheap, well, relatively cheap to buy in today's world, but it's cheap to run. And especially in the days of, $3.50 a gallon gas, that could be a very good thing. I have not driven the Maverick yet, but I've been around it enough. And with the exception of a couple choices, it really is a nice vehicle, good value aimed at the younger buyer.
What I noticed is that one of the jurors, Dan Carney, said that the Ford Maverick hybrid establishes the first new vehicle category since the Chrysler minivan of the 1980s. Now, we might laugh at the minivan in retrospect, but the minivan was a really big deal. And if this is a new category, this is something to look at. And I think about a lot of listeners and a lot of friends I know that they're just not going to drop $100,000 on a vehicle.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to how he's classifying this as a new category, and I'm not going to I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just, asking because we've had small front-wheel drive pickup trucks in the United States from a couple manufacturers in the past, and to me, that's where this falls. As a hybrid pickup truck, okay, well, as a full-size hybrid, yes, we've had those, but not as a compact one. The other thing that's interesting is if you hear comments from Ford, they've been really surprised by how well it's been received. And based off conversations I've had with Ford people over the past 10 to 15 years, I guess I can't be surprised by that because they all think, well, if you're buying a truck, you're going to buy an F-150. Why would you buy anything less? And they always go to why would you buy a Ranger when for, $6,000 more, you could buy an F-150. Well, and of course, their math says that a fully loaded Ranger is the same thing as a completely stripped out F-150. And so then you can put the Maverick into that equation as well. But I think what this goes is, yes, big sells in a lot of places, but for people in suburbia and in urban areas, small, compact, with a lot of utility, value for money, and good fuel economy is going to win.
Yeah, not everybody wants the honking thing. I mean, you're going to sell a lot of big honking trucks. We know that.
Yeah.
But
yes.
there's more market to be had, and I really like that. The idea of trying to serve parts of the market well. One thing I'll ask you, Rivian got so much buzz with their vehicles. Now we know they haven't really moved that many or produced that many actual trucks at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Rivian fall short? I mean, they're in the top 3, but why do you think they fell short?
I think it comes down to price. I really do. And in my head, that's what it comes down to. Is the Rivian a cool truck? Yes. Looking at what else is going to be out there, the F-150 Lightning and what we talked about last time with the $100,000 Chevy Silverado EV. The Rivian looks like a really good value compared to those two. But that said, it's still going to be a $75,000 to $85,000 vehicle, and the Maverick is a $25,000 to $35,000 vehicle that offers. Okay, it doesn't have the same fuel economy, doesn't offer the same utility, same luxury. But that $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, that's a big spread of money, and I've got to believe that was one of the big deciding factors in there.
Finally, North American Utility Vehicle of the Year, the Ford Bronco. Now, I'll spin through my social media, and I see a lot of frustrated future Bronco owners, but I also know some that really love their vehicles that have gotten a hold of it. Why do you think this one took the top notch?
This one, I'm going to scratch my head on a little bit. For this reason, I have driven the Bronco, and the other two that were in there were the Genesis GV70 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. I have not seen the Hyundai Ioniq 5. I think that's another vehicle that just slid in by officially going on sale, right before the end of the year.
I'm just going to say Ioniq 5 sounds like some sort of smartphone.
Yeah, it's Hyundai. It's Hyundai's EV. It's an EV from Hyundai, which by all accounts is quite good. But I have not driven it yet, although I'm going to try and get one on my schedule. The other one being the GV70, I've not driven, but I've been around it and in it. And I've got to say, if it was my vote, I would have gone with the Genesis GV70 because for what most Americans want in a utility vehicle, in the sense of, think of it as the new luxury 4-door car, or near luxury 4-door car. It ticks every box, and it does Lexus better than Lexus does. The Bronco, why did it win? I'm going to say nostalgia. Honestly, I am. I've driven it. It's quite good, but I wasn't blown away by it. And I say this as someone who, not only myself, but in my family, we've owned a lot of Fords. So I feel like if I would have a bias, it would be towards Fords. But I'm also maybe a little overly critical on Fords as well. I will say that. I kind of get why they get it, but that would not have been my choice. I would have gone for the Genesis.
Well, Genesis isn't a brand you see a ton of in the United States, though. Like, they're here, but I don't see them everywhere.
No. And this is it's a problem with launching a completely new brand. I mean, Genesis was a sub-brand of Hyundai, and then they launched, well, first it was a vehicle, then it was a sub-brand, and now it became a brand. And they haven't done the greatest job of launching it. And I think they'd be about the third people to admit it. But if you have a chance to look at the styling, to look at the interiors, the quality, the build quality, just everything about it, the driving dynamics of it, from a comfort standpoint, from a handling standpoint, just how confident you feel behind the wheel. I mean, it is just phenomenal value for money. They're not the cheapest things out there. Let's be honest, but I think a GV70 is probably like a mid-50s, $50,000 vehicle. In today's world, that's not absurd, and you get a lot for your money there.
This week, we learned that the North American International Auto Show will finally return after a hiatus since 2019, this September 14th through 25th in downtown Detroit. Now, this has shifted around a lot, Eric. Now we're talking about a fall show. We had thought about a show that was timed up with the Grand Prix. Now that's not happening. Like, I feel like people are a little tired of all the shifting. Hopefully this actually lands, and this is where it is. Press and Tech Days will take place September 14th and 15th. And then you got the charity preview, and public days will start on the 17th. Initial thoughts?
Generally, I like this time frame for the auto show, although it comes against one or two major obstacles. I think it's a great time of the year because it's literally the perfect time of the year as far as weather for Michigan. So if you're going to have an indoor and an outdoor component, it's going to be pleasant. Generally, it's not cold or hot. It's fairly sunny, mid 70s, it could be anywhere from the 50s to the 90s, let's be honest. But that mid-September is kind of a sweet spot. The problem is you're right in the middle of college football and the beginning of professional football. So that could either be good or bad, but from a public standpoint, it might influence some of the attendance.
I think, if I remember correctly, the Lions start on the road in 2022.
Okay.
I want to say the first couple of weeks, but you're absolutely right. It does take away from a bit of the attention. On the other hand, a lot of the people, at least in that first part of the show, they're there for work. So they're going to be at Huntington Place, to get their paycheck, right? Because it's something that's there. Now, how does this fit into the greater schedule?
Well, in the past, it would have been in an interesting place because it sort of would have kicked off the fall season in the sense of it would have been, now it would be Detroit in September, LA in November, and then you're off to, at least in the United States, Chicago in February, and then New York in April. Geneva usually falls somewhere in the February timeframe as well, February-March timeframe as well, so you could throw that one in there. And then Germany is every other year now at this point. I can't remember, or who knows. So in the world auto stage, it's hard to say because everything's been moved around so much. I think literally Chicago and LA were the only ones that went off kind of when they were supposed to last year, although at reduced capacities.
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. I think one thing, the charity preview is a big deal for this event.
Yes, absolutely.
And official Detroit books it out of town over the summer. I think as soon as the Grand Prix is there will be some in for the Grand Prix because of all the entertaining and such. But as soon as that Grand Prix is over, they are up north or somewhere else. The people with money, and I just know because I used to work in corporate communications. I know the feel. Basically, it used to be Mackinac Policy Conference, Grand Prix, and then goodbye. Right. And then you couldn't get anything done after that. All your things had to wait till September. So this is good in a way because a lot of people will be coming back. You'll be able to get some of those bigger dollar names for the charity preview. Some of that. Also, you think about the press. things
Mhm.
start to pick up again. So I think from that perspective, it makes sense. I do wonder though, what is the future of the auto show and how it's going to evolve? Like, I feel like even with these changes, it's still going to be more about showcasing Detroit and vehicles to the public than it is, say, the press. I don't know. What do you think?
There's a lot of prognostication from a lot of people, ourselves included, about what auto shows look like in the future and what COVID and just electronic media has done to it. I think it's all going to be a guess and a crapshoot looking forward because, do people, after some of this settles down or it just becomes this is what it is as far as the world we live in and how we live with this new situation, do we want to gather in large groups anymore, and things like that? Do we want to have large events? Are we going to be so tired of being isolated that something like this is looked forward to and is more well attended? The other thing we're going to have to look at is what are the marketing budgets for the OEMs, because without full OEM buy-in, and from all the major brands, not only from the Detroit ones, but from the international ones as well, if they don't buy into it, then I don't think any of it matters.
I would like to see more of a festival feel. I think there's an opportunity here to give it more of a South by Southwest vibe. What if we brought more things in that weren't just exclusive for like the auto folks, but did some concerts, did some things open up? Because you and I have both been to these events. There's some great stuff. There's some interesting stuff that happens that's for more of a closed loop. What if with the better weather and the more spread that you have taking this outdoors into different venues, what if you made it more of a festival? What if you made it more fun? What if you had like different houses or buildings to check out, around the greater downtown area? I think you could open up possibilities if you're willing to say what happened in January is what happened in the past. And I don't think we're ever going to see a January show like that again. I think downtown Detroit in the future is going to basically be quiet. Like at this time of year, there's so many restaurants and such that are temporarily closed. I think that's going to continue because, the auto show was the big draw in the middle of January. It helped a lot of places stay afloat through their January. So I think you've got to reimagine it and you've got to say, what do we do to make it something that people want to be a part of? You could open up all the mobility stuff, right? Like you could do something where Ford showed off things in Roosevelt Park and connected that to downtown Detroit. There's things you could do with General Motors. I think if you go to the drawing board and say, we're going to push the envelope, I think you could make a really cool experience.
And as you're saying that, I've got a couple ideas come to mind. Is one, I wonder if you could close off the streets and recreate the Detroit Grand Prix track, the future Detroit downtown Grand Prix track, and use that for your, let's say, EVs or whatever, as far as for a quick drive, because that could be fun. I wonder if you could do as you're saying, like a concert standpoint, since let's say theoretically the Detroit Jazz Festival would be just about, it had just wrapped up 2 weeks ago, if you could still leave some of that up and then do like a combination of Move and Jazz and a couple other, Movement Festival and Jazz and a few other things to throw in there as well. Maybe open up some of the conferences that the companies are talking about for future EV and technology stuff, so that not only can just the press and insiders see it, but then some of the public could see it. Maybe could see some of that, and they may not participate, but at least see what's being talked about more. I think there's a lot of opportunities in there to grow and expand, and it's just let's hope the DADA has the vision to think outside the traditional auto show. I think we saw a little bit of that with Chicago last year at a small level, but maybe not quite. And we saw a little bit of what was possible with what was up at M1 Concourse this year at Motorbella. But yeah, that really just has to take that and really just grow those ideas exponentially.
What do you think they could have learned from Motorbella? Because it just wasn't the same event as the main auto show.
No, but the fact that they did have sort of the track set up where they had the Broncos and then some of the Jeeps and stuff like that on some tracks that you could drive, granted very controlled drives, but still you got to experience that as something more than a static display. You could go I don't think they were letting you drive, but you could at least go for a ride with someone to get a feel of what some of the possibilities were. And like with the Bronco, they had the teeter totter where you went up this really steep incline. You got to a certain point, and then it literally just it tipped over, and then you went down a hill. And I think, as a thrill ride kind of thing, it's novel, but it's cool, and it just shows how comfortable, uncomfortable they are at certain angles, but what's truly possible with a modern vehicle. So things like that I think could be really good. And then of course with all the virtual reality stuff, I think there's a lot of opportunity for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got the General Motors headquarters right there. You could do something really cool along the riverfront or with those streets near there. You could create something at Michigan Central Station that's really memorable. I hope that folks look at not just other auto shows, but maybe other kinds of events for inspiration to turn this into something that could be really cool. And I think just like a huge draw for folks.
The auto shows can't be what they were. They've got to be something new and something different. Or should I just say at least evolve from what they were into something more. People aren't there just for the cars anymore. They want the cars and they want something else. So it's really going to take some leadership and some courage to break away from the old model and try new things and be willing to fail or maybe not succeed like they had hoped, but then take those learnings and continue to build.
And that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.